Good morning, insurance agents all across the country. Good morning. Welcome to Near and Far. It's Tuesday, December 1st. Lucky to be joined today by my tag team partner, my PIC, Jill Henderson. Welcome back.
So happy to be here today on December 1st. Can't believe it's December already.
Yeah, I know. The AEP has blown by. My mustache is gone. It's
Gone?
now no longer November, so had to do the shave this morning. I was a little rough.
Yeah, it looks better though.
You know, I know you don't like them.
Creepy Bill is gone.
Yeah, creepy Bill is gone. My children say the same thing. So, thinking that it's December 1st, we've got 7 days left in the AEP. And I thought about, like for us to talk this morning about, those last minute, like you got a week left, what sort of things you should be doing. And then we were looking at some emails last night about SEP planning and mailing. And I thought we could talk about that this morning. Do you think it's too early for Bob Smith agent in, the middle of Illinois or parts unknown to be planning for SEP?
I think the agent has to be balancing everything at all times. I think they have to finish strong, but they have to have their eyes looking forward too. So yes, they need to look forward.
Okay. So if instead of being Jill Henderson, my tag team partner, if you were Jill Henderson, senior market insurance agent based out of Cranberry, PA, what are the types of things you'd be doing to plan for life after December 7th right now?
So I think that I would focus on some Medicare 101s in this new environment. How can I do them virtually? Where can I connect with a organization, a church, a community to possibly reach their members? I would also be looking at, if I had the funds, which I do have the funds, to do a T65 mailing to really start getting some leads in for the first part of the year.
Okay, so let's talk about educational events in a minute, because that's I was thinking about educational events, but I want to jump back to that in a little bit. So in terms of mailing, because I always find this interesting. We had talked pre-EP about when should agents be dropping mail, kind of what's the lag time on that between when you push the button or the pay button and when they're actually coming back in. And I know that the post office was an absolute nightmare for agents. Now, granted, it was because of the election and mail-in ballots, and who knows how many people were throwing away ballots or adding
any mail,
whatever.
Any mail.
I don't even want to get into that mess of weeds. But in terms of dropping mail, there's a lot of different opinions on there. I know that I've got an opinion on kind of that, getting your T65 mail program going. Would you be pushing the button today? Or would you be waiting till like mid to late December just to kind of get past Christmas time? And what's your thought on that?
I think I would push the button now. I want the pipeline to be ready once we say Happy New Year. So I would say now, if I'm ready to hit it hard in the beginning of 2021.
Yeah. Now, and that's an interesting question, because I know that I was debating that actually with one of our agency principals last week, like right before Thanksgiving, we were having that, which kind of got me down the road of, do we want to start talking SEP? And, the discussion we were having was, okay, if you drop it now, like first week of December, you could have leads coming back in maybe right around Christmas time. And then you're really hitting the ground running like first week of January. Like the other thought that I had was, does the mail kind of get mixed in with the white noise of Christmas cards and, circulars from Walmart and, last minute sales and all of that? Like, I think if it was me, I think I'd maybe be inclined to wait till like maybe the 20th,
15th or 20th,
15th or 20th, and push the button then.
Yep.
Yeah, and I don't know that there's a right or wrong. Like, it would be interesting if we did some A/B testing on like response rates, like one first week in December, one like third week in December, just to see.
It's interesting because right now I am getting, on average, 5 catalogs a day from a variety of companies, and that's probably a good point. It could get stuck in the middle of that, and people are just, trying to open their Christmas cards and aren't exactly looking for their option in Medicare.
Yeah, and that I think, at least for me, that I think would be the danger, is if I'm thinking about my lead card that I'm spending money on as an insurance agent, and it's getting mixed in with like, Aunt Gladys's Christmas card and the invite to the church, something, or any of the various things. And maybe the consumer looks at it, does something with it. maybe they put it on their counter and they say, oh, you know what, I'm going to get back to that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're cleaning up for Christmas and it just gets tossed. You know, that would be my concern. I guess just kind of thinking about direct mail in that fashion.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So you mentioned educational events, and I know that we spent a lot of time both at Insight when we did our virtual conference earlier in the summer, and then in many times since talking about the virtual event. And I'm just wondering, with agents who traditionally do educational events, and we have a number of them that we've worked with for years, that's their thing. January through maybe August, I mean, they're hitting those hard. I'm just wondering, will those agents do one of three things? Business as usual, I'm trying to do them virtual, or I'm totally changing course. You know, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's such a pivotal time right now to see how the virus is going to turn. And I know we are far from experts on the virus, but depending on how the wave of Thanksgiving hits, it's going to be pivotal on where we go. But we're hearing so much talk about the vaccine that I think people will start to want to come back out if we aren't waylaid by a wave of terror for Christmas, for sure.
Yeah, I again, this is one where I don't think there's a right answer. And the difficult thing, though, is if you're going to do events in January, be it in person or virtual, you really have to be putting your marketing together now. Like you got to kind of call it. And I think for me, in watching what the AEP numbers have been, and then in talking to agents, I don't know that I'd feel confident spending thousands of dollars on in-person events in January.
No, I would agree.
Yeah, I mean, if it were me, I think that I would still be trying to position for virtual educational events, January, maybe into February. And then as you're seeing your January stuff going on and you're seeing kind of the overall environment, like maybe at that point you're saying to yourself, okay, I can get back to doing in-person events in March, April. I just don't know that I'd want to toss. I mean, because it can be, depending on how you do it. I mean, some people do a really good job of picking like low-cost event sites, like your libraries or churches or different things, so that cuts down on the event cost there. But you still got to mail to get in front of people. That would be my hesitation over trying to do in-person events in January.
Yeah, and then you throw the weather in, which we never know. With seniors, are they going to want to come out to the library if the roads are bad, etc.?
Yeah. I mean, that's certainly a concern in the northern states, obviously, where we are. You know, in your southern states, you know, obviously not as much of a concern. And we've also kind of talked that in a lot of the southern states, like Texas, South Carolina, and some others, the concern for COVID seemingly is less. You know, or at least that's kind of what we're hearing from agents based upon in-person appointments. But I really think that I'd be looking to do virtual in terms of educational events. You know, our folks that have done virtual sales events during AEP, I feel like I've got good feedback from them. Have you?
I think that their biggest hesitation was the fear in the technology, but now I think people are so comfortable with it that I would agree that people that took the step to create that venue are very happy that they made that choice.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are still using Zoom. I know that there have been some custom software applications that we've seen out there, but seemingly the best response I get from agents is still on Zoom. So if you're sitting there and you're saying to yourself, hey, I usually do educational events as part of my SEP strategy for building business, if you'd like either a refresher or hey, teach me how to use Zoom, contact our sales team. We've got a lot of good resources for you that if you want to take your Turning 65 educational event strategy virtual to kind of protect your investment during this upcoming SEP, just give us a call and we can help you through that. So the other end of agents in SEP, and this kind of became pertinent because Mike Asti, who's on our sales team, who does the Nice Loss podcast, if you haven't ever checked it out, go to the Nice Loss channel, go to our playlist, and check out the Nice Loss podcast. But Mike just did a session with Alan Pauly, who's obviously a good friend of ours. God, I've known Alan 15 years, for a very long time, even before he was in Integrity or I had even heard of Integrity. But he and Alan got together and were talking about final expense sales and postseason game plan, which again begged the question to me, why do you think that the Medicare agent, now there are agents that do it. It's not like no one does it or everyone does it. It's always kind of shades of gray, but I still wonder why more MA agents are not talking about final expense post AEP.
It's very puzzling. I think that if we work on getting the agents to realize they want to reach back out to all their clients anyway and touch base during this time and then talk final expense. Sometimes I feel like they feel as if we're just constantly saying sell this and sell this and sell this, where really we want them to connect with their client and then make sure that all of their needs are covered. And final expense is such a pertinent sale right now.
Like, I understand that you can't cross-sell final expense during the MA appointment. Like, I get that. But I almost wonder, like, an idle thought I was having the other day, because I was starting to think about OEP, January through March. And I thought, okay, is it possible that a byproduct of the OEP, with agents now potentially having fear over, my client, something happened with them, they're not happy, an agent happens to call them, my business gets flipped.
Yep.
Okay. Does that fear inspire more check-in calls with the book of business, and then present in the course of that the opportunity to discuss final expense on that check-in call, and then maybe set another appointment? I was just thinking about that, as would the OEP maybe help drive that as a conversation starter?
Well, I think with COVID and the increased isolation of everyone throughout the United States, that it's just imperative that we encourage our agents to touch base with all their clients. So definitely very important for Q1, for sure.
And I still haven't, just as an aside, I still haven't heard of a final expense company adding COVID as a knockout question.
I know.
Yeah, and I'm interested in that. Like, one of the things we talked about, I think, like right off the jump when all this happened in March, was, will COVID really like blow up, and not in a bad way, but blow up final expense sales, because people have a renewed sense of their own mortality, like all of that fear and anxiety in the market, like, oh my God, I got to go out and buy life insurance.
Yep.
And I think we saw a lot of that, because a lot of our partners with Integrity that are focused on final expense were reporting like really super huge sales numbers second quarter. But I've just kind of wondered about how does COVID impact decision-making with final expense, or from the insurance company's perspective, impact underwriting?
It's going to be interesting to see, but you're right, we haven't seen it come up as a knockout question.
Yeah, no, I haven't yet. Well, one of the things that I thought was really cool was when Mike was talking with Alan on the podcast, they were talking about postseason game plan, which for those of you that aren't aware, postseason game plan is a strategy book that essentially teaches the Medicare agent how to start building a pool of prospects for final expense during the AEP, and also could be really great just for interacting with your existing Medicare clients. So have you ever read Postseason Game Plan?
I have read it, and it's definitely a good blueprint for any agent, and I would encourage anyone to call us and ask us for a copy. We would love to get you one.
Yeah. Oh, do we? I know that I have a copy in my office. Do we have extra books around?
We have copies, and I know we can order more. It's just a great way for an agent to know the steps to follow, for sure.
Especially agents that love sports.
Yes. And what agent doesn't love sports?
well, based upon our corporate marketing, all agents love sports.
Yes.
Absolutely. So tell me this. If you were, again, Jill insurance agent, working out of Cranberry, working the senior market, how would you approach final expense discussions with your Medicare clients?
I think that, again, it would be relational. Check in with them, ask them if they have all that they need for their, future planning in their life, and sort of come at it from the how are you and have you made your plans, not the other way around. Hey, Bob, I have this great new product I want to talk to you about, but hey, Bob, how are you doing? How are you handling COVID? How was your holiday season? Are you prepared? Can I help? Can we discuss about any of the products that we have to help prepare you for the future?
Yeah. So it's interesting thinking about the final expense question. Like, and this just popped into my mind as I wasn't even planning this, just asked you and just hit me. So one of the best pieces of sales training I think I ever got was like really early in my Nice Lawson Fleming career with Jeff Bickmore. Jeff Bickmore used to work here at Nice Lawson Fleming, really good man, good friend, who totally taught me about the life insurance business. And we were chatting the one day about sales. And Jeff had a really keen mind because he had been an agent for so long about how to sell and what questions to ask. And so I said, okay, well, if you're sitting at the table and you're trying to really get to the meat of the discussion on final expense, what's the question you ask? And
what is it?
I'm not just teasing it. I'm gonna give it to you. So he said the best is when you're sitting with a husband and wife across the kitchen table. Okay, Bob and Joni Smith, Ray and Kathleen Emblem, like whoever it is, and you just look at them and say, so what have you done to plan for your final expenses? Just ask that question. And most of the time, he said, people will be like, well, what do you mean? Like, because a lot of people don't understand like the term final expenses oftentimes. And he said, so look at them and say, if one of you dies, how have you prepared to pay for the funeral and other expenses of that type? I just, want to make sure that you're prepared to do that. And Jeff said to me at like 3 out of 5 appointments, and the wife would look at the husband and say, we haven't done anything. You're not sticking me with that. We need to figure out how to cover that. And a lot of times it's the wife asking that question because, generally the men go first. Although we've joked about that before. Why do men die first? Because they want to.
It's a good point, though. We use the term final expense over and over again. Are we making the assumption everyone understands what we're talking about?
Yeah. Well, and I think it's a good point because, I mean, how many times early in our relationship when you first came to work with us from Sony was I talking either in acronyms, you used to yell at me about acronyms all the time, but I'm using these terms, you're like, hey, I don't know what that means. Like, and even when we talk with our marketers, there are times where we'll go through sales meetings and you and I will come out and it's like, did we do a good enough job explaining that? Like, and sometimes you're so wrapped up in your own headspace about, I know what these terms means, that you use them, and perhaps your clients don't get it.
Yep, it's a good point.
Yeah. So, but it's neat talking about Jeff Bickmore this morning because he was one of my best teachers early in my career, and that particular question, like I found really got to it. And I actually sold some final expense because of it. Not that was really my main focus.
Yeah.
So, well, hey, everyone, it's been great to join you for another outdoor shoot here with Near and Far. We will be back with you on Thursday, December 3rd at 7 a.m. Glad to hopefully have a little bit better weather today so we don't need the tent. But this is Joe Henderson. I'm Bill Kiray, and this has been Near and Far. Thanks for joining us this morning.